Hello, viewers. Welcome to this program called Envoy Speaks. In this series, we focus on India's world engagement, and today we'll talk on India Denmark bilateral relations. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's visit to Denmark in 1957 laid the foundation for a friendly relationship between India and Denmark that has endured ever since. The bilateral relations between India and Denmark have been cordial and friendly, based on synergies in political, economic, academic, and research fields. To talk more on this, we have a special guest, His Excellency Freddy Svane, Ambassador of Denmark to India. Ambassador Swan had a previous stint from 2010 to 2015 in India. Before we start our engagement with him, we also have a very special guest and my co host, Ambassador Pradeep Kapur, joining us from Washington, D.C. Ambassador Kapur is a former diplomat and was Ambassador of India to Chile and Cambodia. I welcome Ambassador Freddy Swan to this program.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Uh,
Pleasure.
I I also welcome Ambassador Pradeep Kapur. A very good morning also, since you're joining us from Washington, D.C.
Thank you very much and good morning to everybody.
Before I start my engagement, there is a quote which I would like to put here. The Prime Minister mentioned in Mantra, Denmark has the skill and India has the scale. To this, scope and speed should be added. So I start with my first question. Ambassador Swan, considering the historical connect, what is the present state of relationship between the two countries?
Thank you very much indeed. When I give you a clear answer on that, there's no diplomatic filter on it. It is our relationship is the best ever, and that's why we are enjoying such a lovely strategical cooperation these days and these years. So it's fantastic.
Thank you, Ambassador. And you were probably one of the first European ambassadors to have met Prime Minister Modi when he was Chief Minister in Gujarat. That would have given a good equation working relationship for you with the Prime Minister's team. Now, the Danish Prime Minister and the Indian Prime Minister did meet for the first time at the India Nordic Summit in April 2018 and discussed ways to improve relations between India and Denmark and India and the Nordic countries. What has been the progress since?
Thank you very much, Ambassador Kapur. A lot of things have, in fact, happened. And as you rightly said, that was the first interaction with the then Danish Prime Minister and your Prime Minister Modi ji. And it was part of the, let's say, the enhanced cooperation that we have now seen. But I think we have to step a little bit back in the sense that, in fact, Denmark came to India 400 years ago. So in 1620, on the 19th of November, a Danish naval fleet landed on the shores of Tamil Nadu. So we have a long history that goes back. And at that time, we were traders. But in nowadays, I think we have to start in September 2019. Why? Because we started looking into how to take our relationship that we have developed over years to the next level. And there we decided to define a concept, namely the strategic green partnership. And this partnership is now really becoming a template, and it's really setting out the ambitions that we have on both sides. So it all started there.
Thank you.
Ambassador Swan, Denmark was the first country yesterday which ratified its decision to join the International Solar Alliance Framework Agreement. Based on this, Denmark has been at the forefront when it comes to clean energy. So, how India and Denmark are working on a green strategic partnership, how it is progressing?
It's in fact progressing very, very well in the sense that we have almost finished what we call an action plan, which sets out in a very detailed way a number of projects or intangibles with KPIs, key performance indicators or deadlines, who is responsible, what should be the outcome. And that action plan was in fact approved by the two foreign ministers back in April. And this will soon be published. So I think people will look into it. But we have come extremely far, and as you rightly said, I handed over the instrument ratifying the International Solar Alliance, at least the Danish membership of it. And by luck, and you need luck also in diplomacy, then we were the first country after the International Solar Alliance opened up to a wider group of countries, because we could ratify and we could sign at the same time. So we are very pleased with that.
Ambassador,
So
if you could share a few details of how this cooperation is progressing, if you could talk about some projects which are being carried out in India.
Yeah, I think I'll start by highlighting that to start with, we defined 4 tracks, one on water, one on energy, one on green financing, and fourthly on climate. Of course, the latter is a little bit more political, but it's very, very important also, of course, for the Danish government. But if we take water, what we did on the let's say the beginning of all this, we were looking into what kind of agenda would you find in India that we could connect with. And since I know and knew Prime Minister Modi, I knew his green kind of attitude and green ambitions, then we started looking into the various ambitions. And on water, there's a famous Jal Jeevan mission, namely to secure that there will be tap water in each and every rural household by 2024. And Denmark is a very strong player commercially on the public side as well, but also technology-wise on water. So we said, we would very much like to be part of this mission. We will bring in our technologies, we'll work with the Indian side. And now we are, as part of this action plan beneath the Green Strategic Partnership, we have identified a 3-year working program. And that sets out clearly what to do when it comes to wastewater, drinking water, water supply, non-revenue water, and so forth. So it's the whole range of aspects related to water. And water is important because it's the source of life, and it's the only substance in the world that cannot be replaced by anything else. So it cannot be substituted. So that's where we are. When we talk about energy, we are very focused on wind and offshore wind. Denmark, back in the early 1970s, we were hit by the oil shock. And I was a child at that time. I recall how we were not allowed to use cars, lifts were not allowed to be used during these days. And at that time, we started developing or redefining the wind turbines. And that has become a huge industry with hundreds, thousands, millions of jobs. And most of our energy that we are consuming, not producing, but consuming, is coming from wind. So last year, I think it was more than 45% of our total consumption of electricity that came from wind turbines. And we have taken that to India as well. And we are setting up an offshore wind center with our Indian friends.
thank you, Ambassador. It is just so fascinating to hear all these sectors that you're working and focusing in India, because we from the IIT, I'm from IIT Delhi. We have an IIT organization which is called Wheels. Wheels stands for, the acronym is W for water, H for healthcare, E for energy, E for education, L for livelihoods, S for sustainability. So I see there is a lot of overlap, and the IIT ecosystem is trying to foster how we can leverage technology for enhancing social impact. So separately, we will see if we can help your efforts and help it to scale up the efforts being made by Denmark. But what I would also like to understand from you, Ambassador, after this very clear and lucid explanation of how you're focusing on these primary sectors. What are the priority sectors that the Danish companies are focusing in India?
Basically, and thank you very much for the introduction to the wheels system. In fact, I have been to IIT Delhi, and we have some interaction with them, and we are trying to do more on a number of platforms related to some of the letters in this acronym. But Danish companies, I mean, Denmark is a small country. We are hardly 6 million people, and it's a drop of any major Indian city. But we are really specialized in a number of niches. Everything that has to do with clean tech at large, we are really, really, really good. Cooling, energy grids, robust, resilient energy grids, and so forth. We're also very strong in pharmaceuticals, and as we are getting older, we might contract diabetes, and then we have the Danish companies Novo Nordisk, the world's largest manufacturer and producer of that. We have many other pharmaceutical companies, so they are here and they're working. Then logistics, I think most of you will have heard about the Danish company Maersk, and they are, I think they are transporting to and from India more than 30%, somewhere between 30 and 40% of all containers. They're also operating ports in India, one in Navishira in Mumbai, but also in Pipavav in the Gujarat state. And then we are also quite strong when it comes to everything related to water. We have every kind of technology available for detecting leakages, for handling gray water, but also turning sewage plants into energy hubs. Now, you won't believe it, but in Denmark, when we are treating our sewage water, we have turned the sewage plant into an energy, electricity producing unit, because the more we put in, the more we get out. So everything related to clean tech, pharmaceutical, transport, logistics, and of course also on the IT side, we are dependent on the hugely successful Indian IT industry. And then food production, whatever. So we are into many of the areas where India has missions and where India would like to grow, and we would be a lifelong partner for India and India's development.
Ambassador, you mentioned few sectors of very focus where India and Denmark can cooperate. My next questions, there are two set of questions basically. What is the role of innovation centers which Denmark has set up in India? And secondly, what are the present state of bilateral trade between the two countries, and what are the major items of import and export?
You're spoiling my day because you're asking about the bilateral trade. It's minuscule, it's very insignificant, but the good thing is that, of course, we like to grow it on both sides. And that's why we're extremely happy that we can move on the free trade agenda between EU and India. That's something that is dear to our heart. When it comes to the innovation centers, during my first tenure, we were looking into how to check into or tap into the Indian ecosystem for innovation. And it became very clear to me, and I had some hard times convincing my headquarters, because I said, India is not necessarily the right destination for high tech, but there is fantastic technology which I would call low tech, not low quality, but low tech. And India is a kind of global lab for testing technologies that will have to be robust, resilient, and so forth. And if you allow me, I'll just bring up the example of vaccines. I mean, in the Western world, we are producing excellent vaccines, of course, but some of them will require logistically very special temperatures and so forth. And that's, of course, not easy in a context where you might not have the proper infrastructure to handle that. There, India has an advantage because you can do a lot of innovation that will lead to affordable solutions to simple, robust solutions. So our innovation centers are looking into that, specifically into that. Of course, you are also extremely advanced in specific areas, and when it comes to everything related to digitization, your IT industry, the NASCOM, the whole ecosystem is fantastic. And I have been to a number of these tech centers that Danish companies have put up here in India, and one in Bangalore, and so forth. And to see how these are, sorry my language, nerded Indian IT specialists, how they are really redefining the whole strategy of global companies from Denmark is really mind blowing. So there are a lot of things to do. What we export to Europe is machinery and pharmaceutical products. The other way around is machinery and so forth. But you know, it's insignificant. And today's world is not about bilateral trade because, I mean, many of our companies they are having manufacturing in the U.S., in other parts of Europe, and so forth. So the actual way of telling about the bilateral trade is not really captive in the sense of how trade is being handled these days. So,
Thank you, Excellency, for that clarification and for that understanding. And I'm sure, with all the efforts which you have been making in so many important sectors, uh, even direct bilateral trade will increase over time because you're laying the foundations for that for the future. So, besides all the indirect trade which has been happening through various formats, this will also, I'm sure, the situation will improve very significantly. But what about the aspect of investments from Denmark into India? What are the basic sectors in focus for the investments? You have mentioned already quite a few, but in terms of specific industrial sectors, like you have mentioned, collaborations in the US, what are those in India?
I mean, if we look into where our companies have really invested in India, it is everything related to energy, and put up big manufacturing plants in especially in Chennai. And on the 1st of July, I'm going to meet the new chief minister in Tamil Nadu. But we have so many companies down there, and they're mainly into the manufacturing, designing, R&D facilities related to the wind industry, whether it's onshore or whether it's offshore. Then we have in the water sector, we have a company, Grundfos, and they are really manufacturing high-end pumps for all kinds of segments. What is interesting is that to start with, India was a kind of assembly point. Now they have moved a lot of production to Chennai, and Indian engineers are developing new technologies, new ways of designing a pump and so forth. So India is moving away from being an assembly point to a production point. Uh, I also have to mention a company called Danfoss. They're one of the world global leaders into cooling, e-mobility, and so forth. They have a huge campus in Chennai, and there are thousands of people working there to secure that, for instance, fish can be treated, or prawns can be treated and handled properly, so the fishermen will not lose due to poor quality and so forth. They are also in the business of cool chains or cold chains and so forth. So they are playing a significant role. On the other hand, we also have institutional investors, and of course, they are like many others, other sovereign funds, pension funds. They're looking into India, and they're investing in different sectors, but mainly related to green transition, green energy, and all that. So I think things are India offers a lot of opportunities, and if you have available money, especially green finances ready, then India is the right place. But you have to invest in the opportunities and not always be looking into the return on your investment.
Thank you.
Ambassador, what has been the role of Indian diaspora in the Danish economy since you mentioned a sector, information technology, which has played a very important role, I think. And you have a lot of IT professionals and a lot of IT companies who are running from Denmark. So, what has the Indian diaspora's role? And secondly, what efforts have been taken to improve people to people contacts?
Um, the first Indians came to Denmark shortly after the Second World War, and many of them were involved in the pharmaceutical business and later on IT. And today we have so many IT professionals in Denmark. There's hardly any company in Denmark who will not have IT support from India. And early on, it was just back office business process operations and all that. But today, it's really has moved very high up into the value chain. And a company like Maersk, the chief CIO is an Indian, and he was sitting in Bangalore and developing or transforming the company from being a shipping giant with logistics to a what we call a digitalized logistic player. So a lot of things have happened. And there's one company which has been really kind of special bridge between our two countries. That's a company called L&T, Larsen and Toubro, or Love and Trust. In fact, it was founded by two Danes that came to India before the Second World War. And when the war started, they were called back, but they said, no, we would like to be here. And they formed their own company. And today, L&T is a big global player and a huge EPC company with a lot of activities business-wise in India and outside India. So very, very important. How to secure the people-to-people exchange is, of course, very, very important. And I think the most important, at least recently, conceived program was the setting up of a cultural institute of Denmark in Delhi, because we know that culture, soft power is so important. And I mean, on the 21st of June, we were all celebrating the International Yoga Day. I went to a small slum area in Janakapuri to be with the kids there and performing some yoga. And you know, yoga is soft power. India has much more to offer on soft power, and therefore I'm extremely happy that we have this cultural institute, and we'd like to see kind of cultural center of India being established in Denmark as well. So.
Thank you. And it's just so interesting to listen to, the stories like Larsen and Toubro. I have been associated with them in terms of the projects which they have carried out overseas, where I've been ambassador or minister.
Right.
But it never struck me that the Danish connection was so strong with Larsen and Toubro. And with Maersk also, we have had very close associations. Klaus Nielsen is a good friend who's a very senior executive in Maersk, and we have worked closely for enhancing our, work in this sphere. So many examples you have said, Ambassador. It's just so fascinating to hear from you. Now, Denmark is also well known for its focus on sustainability, for new Nordic food, for bikes, for classic furniture design, and for being the happiest country in the world. Why is it the happiest country to live in? What is the secret?
It's a very complex question, because there are many parts to it and so forth. Perhaps I will provoke you a little bit, because when I was in Japan, they also asked me the same question. I said, it's because of the high taxes, and then they were almost fainting and said the tax can never be part of happiness. And I said it can, because when I am a happy taxpayer, I did not bring it up in India because that's a different context. But I said I'm a happy taxpayer because I'm investing in my society, my own society. I want my society to really to develop and so forth. And I'm the lucky father of 4 kids. And what we have in Denmark is free education, and those of you who will have to pay fees and all that for your kids, if you have that, joining XYZ University, imagine that you don't have to pay for it because you're already paid through taxes. We have free healthcare. So being a happy taxpayer has a lot to do with on the as to the return on your investment. So there has to be a balance, of course. But happiness is, in a broader perspective, also the way in which we live. And don't forget that Denmark is really quite high to the north, and meaning that we have four seasons, and during winter time it is extremely depressing because you hardly see sunlight. There's hardly any daylight. So we decided that we had to spend more time, family time, time with friends, so we could sip a cup of tea, hopefully from India, or a cup of coffee, hopefully also from India, or a beer, whatever you take. But being together, developing this coziness, and I think that also laid the foundation for what we call the work-life balance. And we don't want to work 24/7. We are damned effective when we are working, but we also like to have spare time for family life, for leisure, doing sports activities, and so forth. So happiness is something you define, and it's also the way in which you can really develop a more balanced society. And we all need some free air, free time, and that's why we have created the word kind of concept of happiness. We also have another word called hygge, which is very difficult to pronounce. It's spelled Hygge, and it's the same. Hygge leads to happiness, and happiness leads to hygge. But it's not the same that each and every person in Denmark is happy, because we also have our challenges, and that's how it should be. But I think we have really been able to develop that kind of lifestyle, so we feel happy and we enjoy the hygge. And you'll see it in design, the way in which we do our cooking, how we are developing our houses, and so forth. So it's a lifestyle, but we are proud of it.
It is very important to mention here that in March 2021, according to the UN report, Denmark was ranked number 2 after Finland. Now, my last question will be Ambassador Freddy Svane. What is your vision for India Denmark relations over the next few years and by 2030?
Let me just answer your question about Finland and Denmark being number 2. If you are number 1, you might get complacent, and you might not have too many ambitions. So it's sometimes it's better to be number 2, because then you can climb. Number 1, you can only fall down. So we wish our Finnish colleagues all the best. My vision for the Indo-Danish relationship is, of course, to really to expand it. I'm a firm believer of long-term relationship, and I'm extremely focused on your Prime Minister's vision, the new India. You have so many people who do not necessarily have the same kind of amenities that I have, the same kind of comfort that I have. And we also often refer to India, that India, as we speak, you'll find people living in medieval times. So there are 7, 8 centuries where people are living. So my dream is, of course, to connect with the new India vision, which will mean that there's kind of basic welfare for each and every person living in lovely India when it comes to health, and with the COVID and second wave and the vaccines and all that, I think it's more needed than ever. So basic welfare, full free access to healthcare, education, energy, finance, and so forth. So there are long, and water, of course. So there are so many aspects, and we would like to be part of that value chain. with the focus on improving the conditions for each and every person on this planet. So skills, scale, speed, and scope. I think that's the one-liner here. Of course, we also like to see India becoming much more stronger economically, and hopefully in 2047, I don't know whether I'm still alive at that time, but at least I will still mentally be, let's say, be driven by the ambition to see an India which has grown really fast and developed a system that each and every person living outside of India say, okay, the 100 years India managed to do that. It's fantastic. So strong India in the sense that each and every Indian will have a kind of good living, and that India is a strong player regionally, globally. A strong India is important, and we can't solve the climate change issues. We can't deliver on the sustainable development goals without India being part of that equation. So whether we like it or not, India has to be part of it, and India is the future, and there we would like to connect. We are only for the future. We are not for the past. We can dream, or we can dwell with the past. We can enjoy the present, but we can dream of the future. And that's what I'm doing with India, a green, sustainable, strong India. That's my hope, my dream.
Thank you. That's such a wonderful session to have had this chance to interact with you and learn from you and see your passion, and with the work that you're doing in India for Denmark, with Denmark. I'm sure that for both India and Denmark, you're an absolutely outstanding person at the right place at the right time. And we wish you all force and even greater, success in your efforts and endeavors.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Kapur. I took a lot of learnings from you, and in my view, you are not a former diplomat, you are a diplomat and an ambassador, and we might get old and we might not qualify for being part of the kind of bureaucratic system, but being an ambassador is also connecting with the right people, securing that we can develop new ways of developing a better system, a better world, and that's our obligation. So thank you very much indeed. Pleasure.
Thank you, excellent.
Thank you.
That brings me to the end of this program. Ambassador Svane and Ambassador Kapur, after this conversation, you have made me a lot more happier. And Ambassador Svane, you gave insights into India-Denmark relations. The partnership is very focused. It is very special, and we know the sectors on which we need to work on, and there is a clear roadmap also. So that brings me to the end of this program. Thank you very much, Ambassador Svane and Ambassador Pradeep Kapur.
Thank you.
This is Ameya Sathaye for sarkaritel.com and diplomacyindia.com signing off from New Delhi, India. If you liked our video, please subscribe to our channel and share it, like it. And Ambassador Svane is saying, wear mask. This is very important. We are still not out of the woods. Thank you very much, and a warm namaste.
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 Such a pleasure, Ambassador.